Oh, hello. Do you think that Big Brother's watching? Or that the Illuminati is planning to take over the world? Have you happened to have an encounter with a space alien today? Well, if the answer to those questions is yes, then grab your hat. This is tinfoil hat time. Welcome back to tinfoil hat time. This is Tom. Sorry to get political, but we're going to be talking about fake news today. And I found that I could not discuss fake news without getting into a little bit of politics. So we're going to get into a little bit of politics. Sorry, this is going to be bad company. I may even touch on religion. Oh boy. Religion and politics. Oh, not much of that though. Not much of that. Just calm down. It's all good. I am also going to be doing this in a slightly different format. I'm recording this on OBS instead of my general recording because I'm going to jump back and forth and actually start doing some screen sharing as we go through this. So basically, what I want to talk about here today is fake news. Now, I first saw the fake news stuff, a little while back with, particularly before it was even really termed fake news and all this, when Facebook was trying to do away with the clickbaity articles. And I like, good deal, I was sick of seeing all these, blah, 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 here's why, and then you click on the thing and then you get about 17 bajillion ads. It's like, it's a mystery of the world how you can fit so many ads on a page and then one little line of something. Then you got to sit there and click the thing. And it's like loading hundreds and hundreds of lines of code from ads all over the place to just see one little thing. It ends up being really stupid. All these are just clickbait things to get you to click the article so that they can view and display all these ads and you can, give them some ad revenue. That's kind of what it is. I'm not against ad revenue, obviously. I monetize the videos and there's some ads on my website, but I keep them on the sidebar, out of the way. I don't give you pop-ups. I don't give you pop-ups for sign-in boxes. That stuff drives me crazy. I love the oatmeal cartoon. It's like, what happens when a big pop-up website puts a big pop-up on your screen. It's like putting a big, giant, hairy spider. You give me a pop-up, I immediately leave the site. Period. Unless there's we'll put it 99% of the time, you give me a pop-up on your site, I leave and go look at another site. Not opposed to ads. I'm just against that kind of stuff. So when Facebook started to crack down on that, I was like, pretty cool. And then I start seeing the term fake news. I'm thinking the immediate things I thought of is, in the Christian circles, I see the Babylon Bee, and I hate that stupid thing. The same thing with the Onion. These are clearly fake news. They're satirical articles. They're fake, and they're obviously fake. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they still exist. So whatever. But what fake news generally will come to mean falls under two basic broad category definitions right now. Okay, number one is either completely wrong or misinformation. Total fabrication stuff, either to push a political view or to sell ad revenue, whatever the case, and usually it's to sell ad revenue. Have some sensationalist thing, it links back to a site, it looks like a legitimate place, and for whatever reason people want to follow it. Now, there is another definition for fake news, and it is a little scarier one, more of the hat function. The scarier part is when you define your fake news as something that is either against your particular media establishment or against the mainstream media in general. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. But what I wanted to get into, let's just dive into the political part, and where the fake news fits all this is some people, particularly on the left side, still a little sore that Trump became the president-elect, and kind of still licking their wounds, are jumping down and saying it was all the fake news is what caused Trump to be elected. And that's not the case. I mean, if you really want to watch a lot more going back way into the history when Bill Clinton was in the office and back when the Democratic Party really decided that Hillary Clinton was going to be the first female president, and to see the things that they started setting into motion, I didn't take the time to research all that stuff, but Eli the computer guy has a fabulous video on that topic, and I believe it was the video where he said that he voted for Trump. And so go check out that video, what puts that in. The bottom line is the basic voting Democratic population, they did not want Clinton in office. They wanted Bernie Sanders in office. And when all of this DNC, I don't know if it's conspiracy or whatever else came out that said basically that the Clinton campaign sabotaged Bernie, I really think that really hurt the Democratic Party in that respect. And, you know, overall, I have found a lot of people that didn't want Trump to be in office, but I found almost nobody I know of that really wanted Clinton to be in office. And it was just, this was a weird election. It was just totally weird, completely one for the books. But basically, the Democratic voters wanted Bernie. And I think that if Bernie ended up being the Democratic runner, he probably would have won the office. I think people would have been way more supportive of Bernie than of Trump. And that's kind of my opinion. And I personally wouldn't have voted for him. I think Bernie had fabulous integrity. I just disagreed with about everything he wanted to do in office. So I wouldn't have voted for him either way. But I think that's why Clinton lost the election, is because the Democratic Party wanted Clinton to be the first female president. But the Democratic voters really wanted Bernie. I knew a ton of people that wanted Bernie in office. I mean, and, you know, for whatever reason. So really what happened is when it came down to Clinton and Trump, in my opinion, now I did the whole video, you can watch it. You know how I voted. But really, I think that what happened is that the people weren't quite sure what to do. And of course, the whole thing's, you know, well, Clinton won the popular vote. Okay, was it 67 million people voted? The difference was 2 million. I mean, and actually one group that did the stats for each state said the entirety of the difference of the popular vote was exclusively California. If California went closer to Trump than it did, Trump would have won the popular vote. So I'm not even sure. I mean, as somebody who is formally trained in the sciences, as close of a vote it is not statistically different to say it was a 50-50 popular vote. I mean, 67 million versus 65 million, that's 50-50. Okay, that's about as 50-50 as you get. But the thing is this. Reposts became what the issue is. So people are saying all of these fake news articles that were all, you know, either pro-Trump or anti-Clinton fake news articles back and forth. And we're going to look at some of those articles here. People are saying, well, it was all of these reposts is what got Trump into office. And people were blaming Facebook for not being active and taking out these things. And Mark Zuckerberg's like, I don't really think that really swayed the election. And some people agreed with him and some people disagreed with him. And you can, you know, make your own mind up on that. But here's the thing about these reposts. Regarding all these reposts, and we'll look at an article here shortly where it actually shows that the number of the fake articles reposted end up being higher than the number of real articles reposted. The fact of the matter is, the fact that your fake article reposts generally tended to be about Trump and your, or I should say favorable towards Trump / negative towards Clinton, end up getting towards the election slightly higher than the quote mainstream media articles that were generally biased pro-Clinton and anti-Trump. And generally the fact that we had all of this reposting going on of effectively quote-unquote pro-Trump things tells me something about human nature. Because if you're on Facebook and you look at an article and you agree with the article, whether it's factual or not factual, if you agree with it, you generally repost it. Now, not all of us. Like, I don't know if I've ever, now maybe one or two things I may have ever reposted on Facebook. Now, I'm not on Facebook much at all. I have time for it, and I kind of disagree with it. But basically, we tend to agree with and want to spread the things that we agree with. And if we see something that is not so much in that way, we generally move away from it in a way. And so the fact that there's so many more pro-Trump as opposed to pro-Clinton reposts kind of tells you that the people really were leaning more towards Trump than leaning more towards Clinton. And I found that particularly fascinating because social media is generally more of a leaning left platform anyway, because it's definitely more populated by the younger population, which generally goes more Democratic than Republican. And so on a platform that is generally more liberal leaning, left leaning, the fact that more reposts leaning pro-right, pro-conservative tended to show me that I think a lot of people really actually did seem to want Trump in office, for better or for worse. So we generally tend to repost the things that we generally agree with. So let's look at some of these articles, shall we? So what we're going to do is I'm going to, actually, let me come over here and pull up what I want to look at first. First, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the fake news articles here. So this here is, this is from Huffington Post. Now, Huffington Post, mind you, is a very liberal-leaning publication. In fact, one of the articles, I'm not sure if it's one of the articles I have pulled out here to show or not, but one of these articles here is like, in fact, I think it is. I don't know. Anyway, I'll show you where they kind of messed up. But here is where Huffington Post kind of disagrees with Mark Zuckerberg, and they're kind of being facetious here. Here's some of the fake news articles that Mark Zuckerberg isn't worried about. In other words, Mark Zuckerberg is an idiot. Kind of what they want to say. So let's have a look at a few of these fake news articles, just so we know what we're talking about here. Okay, now this here is actually, we're not going to go there because I think the second or third article in this list is actually talking about this. So the first fake article here is this: Denzel Washington backs Trump in the most epic way possible. So this is something that kept on getting reposted. And then down here, this guy's like, this Facebook trending story is 100% made up. Nothing in it is true. That is actually false. Now, Denzel Washington never came out in support of Trump. He traditionally has been a pro-Obama, like an Obama supporter. And in August of 2016, he backed away from all support and chose not to endorse any candidate, whether one side or the other, for this election. However, the article where this thing came from is actually a real article. They happen to quote a different person. And so this is not 100% made up. Now, in all fairness, of course, this is a picture of the, or whatever, the tweet here. But if you actually follow through, somewhere around here, there was actually a Snopes. No, it wasn't here. I think I did a little bit of internet searching to look this up. And I actually uncovered it. What this was is it was an article from another person. And I'm not sure if Denzel Washington was also quoted somewhere in the article. I didn't read the full article, but I read all of the explanations back and forth. So Denzel Washington never backed or supported Trump. But a person in the article did, and that's who they were pulling the quotes from. I'm not sure if they pulled the quotes and simply falsely attribute it to Denzel Washington or whatever the case was. Regardless, not all that concerned. But this here is an example of a bad post. And so here you can see down here in these Facebook reposts where these are at. So this is, what is this? AmericanNews.com. So you want to look at these. Because these here will kind of tell you if there's credibility to this or not. Okay, so the next one here. This is where I kind of wanted to get a little religious. This one here from the dailypresser.com by the American Patriot. You know, Trump is getting support from every leader. Okay, so basically you're saying, breaking news, Pope Francis just backed Trump. This is wrong on so many levels. But Huffington Post is also wrong on so many levels. So first let's talk about what is wrong here, and then we'll look at what Huffington Post did incorrectly here. So first and foremost, here in the United States, it is actually against the law for a church leader to officially back any political candidate. Whether we like that law or dislike that law, it's a law. So how does that translate? Well, I'm a churchgoer, and if I was in church the day before the election, which I believe I was, and the pastor stood up and says, we are going to support X candidate, and that's who we recommend, and that's what we want to do, that's against the law. Now, the Pope actually said, hey, I need everybody to evaluate the facts, look at all of the issues, and vote your conscience. That's actually what the Pope had said. So this here is a completely made-up article. Now, here's the problem. Here's what Huffington Post did. They're like, false. Indeed, the Pope said Donald Trump earlier this year, this man is not a Christian. Of course, as I already said, Huffington Post is a left-leaning periodical. I'm trying to remember if it was at the Huffington Post or is it another one. I don't want to speak too out of turn on this, but I think it was the Huffington Post put out an article that was so stupid a couple years ago. I was like, fascinating. Okay, so basically, here's this whole article. Pope Francis on Donald Trump. Quote, this man's not a Christian. They give this giant anti-Trump article here. Then, of course, they finally get this update, and the update is actually in the article. Of course, they never fix the headline or put update in the headline to say, oh, this is not true. But here is the headline. In fact, they're quoting now from CNN, which is also another left liberal leaning system. But at least CNN had the integrity to put some quotes in here. So this is what Donald Trump's response is. I don't like fighting with the Pope. I think he said something much softer than was originally repeated by the media. I think I heard one side of the story, which is probably by the Mexican government. Yet he likes the Pope and would welcome the opportunity to meet him. He's got a lot of personality and very different, and I think he's doing a very good job, Trump said. I think this was very much misinterpreted, and I think he was given false information. So basically, and then of course, look at the editor's note. Donald Trump is a serial liar, a rampant xenophobe, rapist, misogynist, birther, and bully who has repeatedly pledged to ban all Muslims. This is so absolutely biased. I think that the Huffington Post is guilty of greater atrocities than this crap right here, because at least this crap right here, anybody with a little bit of common sense can A, check out Snopes, and B, realize that federal law here in the United States prevents any religious leader from making a public endorsement. Huffington Post, on the other hand, they're just guilty of flat out wrong, biased media. Whether you like Trump or not, the fact that they're putting that kind of stuff at the bottom of their articles is just absolutely stupid. I gotta calm down before I accidentally let some words slip out that I don't like. Oh boy. Okay, this one here. Here's another one. Now this one here was a fascinating one. Now, of course, there is an intriguing amount of people that end up being mysteriously dead surrounding the Hillary. This was not one of them, apparently. So this was a entirely fabricated article, simply designed as clickbait to get people to go to this website, the denverguardian.com, which is actually false. If we go over here and we click on the false, it takes us to the Denver Post, which actually does a very good journalistic job of identifying why this is incorrect on pretty much every single level. So pretty much this is a fake article. Or the Denver Post is good, but the Denver Guardian, it actually doesn't exist. It is yet another one of these small little proxy things that just kind of shot up. We have a few that don't necessarily relate to the election here. So here's a George Soros. This is actually from Snopes.com, but the headline here was adjusted. If you actually go here, the link itself disproves this. Here we have another fake one, politicalears.com. See, this is a thing. You look at where these are coming from, and these are not like legitimate things. No, liberals, Hillary did not win the popular vote. This is, was it yesimright.com? I mean, the fact that people are reposting these is a sad commentary. And this kind of brings me to my last point. And I'm going to say it now, but I'm going to reiterate this at the end and probably a few other times. We need to take the responsibility as people to not believe anything someone says, including the Huffington Post. We already see that they are anti-Trump. So we really can't believe what they say one way or the other, because we know they have a serious, absolute serious, inappropriate bias. But whether it's the Huffington Post or whether it's yesimright.com, we need to make sure that we are not just blindly listening to anything and everything. We really need to go in and examine all of the facts and all of the data. And please, let's stop reposting stuff without looking into it. The number of times I've seen things reposted, not about the election, just about things in general, that it's just like, okay, this is just stupid. Why are you people still posting this crap? Just stop it. Stop it. Okay? Here's another more dead related to Hillary. In this case, it's the doctor who treated blood clots, truththinking.com. And then here's another one. Is it true? WikiLeaks reveals epic video. Bill Clinton, and Megyn Kelly. Hey, at least this one seems to be based. No, wait, hold on. Let's not go there. But freepatriotpost.com, of course, really nothing there. So here we have a very biased Huffington Post giving us some examples of some fake articles. And indeed, these are fake articles. We can disagree with some of their premise, but that's quite okay. So let's look at what was really causing some of the ruckus here. So this here is from BuzzFeed. So BuzzFeed is looking at what they're doing is they're doing an analysis of the fake news versus mainstream news. So, and this is a problem because the fake news versus mainstream news. So here you can see the reshares, and of course this is not necessarily election related, although I think they might have only looked at election related news. That's a thing. In fact, yeah, of course that's what they tell us. Top 20 election stories, total Facebook engagement for the top 20 election stories. You can see here that February to April made it to July and August to Election Day. You can see that the fake news shoots up to 8.7 million shares and the mainstream news drops down to 7.3 million shares. Now, what I like about this is they actually give us their data, which is a Google Doc. And so their data here, hopefully you can see that. Let me see if I can, trying to see if I can zoom that in a little bit more. Let me try. Oh, yep, that does work. That does work. Okay. So we're going to get a little bit with my image over here. Let's see. Here we are. Let's just do that. Get rid of my tinfoil hat for a brief moment. So here they're looking at the top stories, the top 20 fake/false stories. And over here's the number of Facebook engagements and, of course, the publication, Ending the Fed, The Political Insider, Denver Guardian, Ending the Fed, World News Daily Report, abcnews.com.co, That's a fascinating one. Liberty News. Yes, I'm right. Yeah, we already talked about that one. Twitchy. A little twitchy. And then, of course, we have the real articles here. Now, I read through these. I did actually flip through, at least browse through each of these guys. So we can see the level of engagement here on these various articles. And so, let's see. Let me go ahead and transition back to that. So on these articles here, we can see what some of these are. Pope Francis shocks world. Obviously, we looked at this one. This was certainly a fake article. In fact, I skimmed through pretty much all of these, and I think that, yeah, indeed, I would agree. All of these guys are probably not real articles, which is definitely fake news, and this is something we do need to deal with. Now, here's kind of a challenge. And here's kind of where the tinfoil hat comes back into play. It's one thing to say we want to do away with fake news, but the unfortunate thing that seems to have been demonstrated is that the mainstream media is, in many cases, trying to go as far as to say that any news that does not agree with the mainstream news is fake news. And it's interesting that if you look at what Facebook is doing, I closed that window down, didn't I? If you look at what Facebook is doing as far as identifying the fact checkers, they're talking about bringing on some fact checkers on board so that they can use that to determine what's new and what's not. And here is unfortunately what we get. So this is actually the fact-checking network that Facebook is looking at using. And if you look over here, what you notice is there is a whole lot of mainstream medias, like ABC News is on here. Of course, this is a whole international group. Climate Feedback, that's fascinating. Factcheck.org is actually a conglomerate, I believe, of several other mainstream medias. So basically, these mainstream medias... Okay, Washington Post fact checker. Yeah, Washington Post is also a liberal left-leaning. And so what seems to be the case is that what Facebook is starting to do is pulling in mainstream media to do the fact-checking for them. So it's one thing to say, this is a false article. This is set up by a proxy domain, and there's one or two articles and a whole bunch of ads. It's either clickbait or trying to get us to change some viewpoint. Or option B happens to be that it actually could be a legitimate news source, a non-mainstream media. Like, for example, this channel right here. Now, most of my channel is talking about Linux, but this segment of the channel is really me talking about non-mainstream media stuff. Things that you may not have as readily apparent in front of you, and there is a lot of good and legitimate news out there that's not necessarily part of the mainstreamers. Now, the sad thing is, people like Alex Jones, who I think is gone off a rocker, I think he needs to be wearing one of these things because, like, more legitimately, because I do it as kind of fun. He kind of freaks me out a little bit, but he's becoming, in many ways, more reliable than some of the mainstream media with all of the extreme bias that they are showing as they are navigating through all of the things that they're doing. I mean, we're already seeing what the Huffington Post has done, and if we go back and we look at these articles here that BuzzFeed's looking at, and we look at some of these articles, it's like some of these, I mean, we get Huffington Post is in here a lot. We know that they're biased against against them. Of course, Hillary Clinton for president is the New York Times article, which is flat out, openly and publicly endorsing Hillary Clinton for president. Of course, now we get a little pop-up ad. Yep, go away. So here we have the Huffington Post is definitely anti-Trump, if not pro-Clinton. Here we have the New York Times is flat out endorsing Hillary Clinton. So are they going to report unbiasedly? And then some of the other ones in here is literally a website put together by, I'm not sure if a feminist group or whatever else, that is put together by another group of people that is completely anti-Trump. I'm trying to find which one that was. But if you look through the articles and the references, that's kind of what you're seeing. So the challenge is, if these people are, if the mainstream media, who definitely has a bias one way or the other, is in charge of fact-checking things on Facebook, this poses serious problems for the non-mainstreamers to get their message out. And the thing is that fake news isn't not mainstream news. Fake news is just wrong and fake. But non-mainstream media that is not fake is going to come with resources and references. It's going to come with some verifiable sources. And there are going to be platforms that you can actually look at and piece together the information. And that kind of brings us down to that main point once again with this entire article, is that we need to not just repost everything, because ultimately we are running in danger right now. We are running afoul, not just politically, but we are running afoul in our mindsets, in how we're thinking, in how we are interacting, in how we are responding. And rather than just seeing something on Facebook or some other social media site and just instantly reposting it to your wall so all your friends see it and they do the same thing, and before we know it, fake news has got shared left and right, please, before you repost anything, fact check it. Which, by the way, even includes mainstream media. If you read through an article and they're clearly biased on the viewpoint, whether it's political or otherwise, don't repost it. We don't have enough credibility. Now, if they're giving you a lot of links, a lot of resources, a lot of references that we can get in there and do all that kind of stuff, that's a completely different story. We can talk about that. So anyway, overall, fake news, it's interesting. I am absolutely on board with eliminating fake news that's simply fake, proxy domains to sell ads, to be controversial, to be clickbaity. I want to get rid of that stuff. This stuff's just garbage, okay? But if we get into the tinfoil hat area of mainstream media saying that some other media, just because it wasn't reported by them or has a different bias than them, is wrong, that's where we're going to get into some real danger. So while we need to get rid of fake news, while we crucify the fake news, let's not crucify the news that's contrary to mainstream, unless it's fake. But we can't just say, this isn't a mainstream news article, therefore it's fake. Because what concerns me the most is the watchdogs over the fake news is the mainstream media, and most of them seem to have a bias. And by the way, I've mentioned I mentioned Huffington Post and New York Times, and I think Washington Post as being very biased. You know, some people will be like, well, Fox News is, no, Fox News is just as biased, just the other way. In fact, one of the articles, I don't have it pulled up here, but one of the articles I read, I mean, it's like Fox News tooting their own horn, the information we have is the best information. It's like, no, No, you're too biased the other way. You're either biased one way or you're biased the other way, and that's what I don't like about the mainstream media. That's why I stopped watching the news. I pick up my news from some business news places and things like that, and that for me is the way I want to go. So, fake news. Please don't repost stuff without checking the facts. Think before you act. If you have to put on a tinfoil hat, put on a tinfoil hat. This has been Tom with a tinfoil hat time. I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.